Pipeline. Chris Flood has joined us. Welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excited to do my first podcast.
All
Oh,
right.
first podcast. We're honored. We probably should have had you on earlier because you've been doing this coaching thing for a hot little second. But just starting out, you're from the beach volleyball hotbed that Coastal Carolina indoor volleyball seems to be pulling from as well. Louisville, Kentucky, right? So we've got Aaron King and Matt Scott here, and you happen to actually kind of know Matt pretty well, right? Your dads work together at the factory or something like that.
Yeah, no, my dad worked with Matt's dad at UPS for many years. Went to a couple derby parties at his family's house. Matt's like probably one of the best dudes I've ever got to know. So lucky to have him.
Yeah, we feel pretty lucky getting him here, and Aaron too. You guys played club together, and then I think Scotty was maybe the GA at Louisville, where you kind of started playing and being a practice player for the women's team there.
Yeah, no, he was at the University of Louisville when we kind of got to start working together. He was kind of honestly my mentor, taught me how to do like volumetrics, like coding, everything. Really kind of brought me into the whole culture of Louisville volleyball. I mean, he was like literally everything when it came to like that role model into the coaching world. And then Aaron King, I mean, great middle, always there. Was very successful on our team, so happy to see him get into the coaching world. I think he started what, WKU?
Yeah, he
Something
started at
like that.
Western, so there's quite
Yeah.
the little coaching pipeline coming out of Louisville.
Yeah, no, it's
You
really good.
you started at Louisville, but then you went to Missouri Baptist to start playing. How does that like? I think a lot of people don't know men's volleyball, but
Yeah.
Louisville does not have men's volleyball. So
No.
you had to play some club and practice player. How'd you get to MoBap?
I was actually playing in a local grass tournament. One of me and Aaron's old club teammates, Travis Collard. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. But we were playing in a grass tournament. He came up to me and was like, "Hey man, you got any eligible, years to play?" And I was like, "I think I got two left." And he was like, "Well, we should get you in for a visit." And then kind of went from there. He kind of was like, let's come back, get your degree. Maybe we can give you some money to help you out a little bit. And I was like, yeah, if you're gonna pay for my school, like let's make this happen, right? Free education.
Yeah, yeah. So you went and played there. What position were you in school? You're a pretty tall fella, but
Yeah, no, I actually was recruited as more of like a DS outside, because I was pretty short going into college. I didn't hit like 6 foot till like my right at my freshman year of college, right? And then I kind of shot 4 inches before season. It was kind of crazy. But yeah, no, I was always came in as like a libero DS and then kind of took over the outside roles once I kind of grew and always had a good vertical, so that kind of helped out. And
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You were like a small person, learned how to have some ball control, and then they were
Hmm.
like, "Shoot, we need somebody to hit."
Dan
You
Stewart
play all
was
those
cool.
positions. You go from little guy to tall guy. What makes you move to California and decide to start like playing some beach and getting into beach?
Honestly, like everybody talks about going indoors, like going overseas, like all these things, right? Like if you're not in like one of those top leagues, right? You're not getting the, insurance, they kind of like are, oh, you got hurt, we'll send you right back, So I've heard some like horror stories about going over there, people getting hurt. I was coming off of like 2 long seasons. So it was like, hey, where can I go like rehab my body and continue to play for the longest period of time I could? And kind of ended up in the beach game, right? Like moving out to California, you got to experience like that deep sand, really soft. I mean, really great for the body. So that's kind of like what drove me to the beach was injury prone, right? I didn't want to continue down that track. Wanted to kind of move forward and rehab my body and play for the as long as I possibly could.
Awesome. Well, you played for a little while, right? And then you were like, okay,
Yeah.
this stuff's for the birds. Getting into coaching and doing that a little bit more full time. How'd you get hooked up with Davy?
Everybody says it's like all who you know. Well, I didn't really know anybody when I came to California. So that's kind of like a long shot. Just saw him out there on the beach a little bit. I'd met a guy named Barnes and he was like, "Hey man, like let's go train with this guy a couple times." Kind of took me under his wing and probably played with him for about 2 or 3 months, kind of going to Scott like every, you know, probably once a month at that point. And finally I just looked at Scott and I was like, I have no idea about this beach game. right? Like I'm from Kentucky, like I know indoor, like we can talk about all day, but when it comes to beach, like there's so many little nuances, like understanding the wind or, just kind of the feel of the game, like playing chess rather than, getting in a spot and like ball's only 2 feet away from me somewhere. Right. So kind of thinking ahead process and Scott he was like, we got a little internship, right? They were running the AVP Academy back then. So kind of jumped in honestly at the right time as they were getting that rolling and they needed somebody to fill like the internship role. So I kind of walked on the beach at the right time.
It's a good internship because I think at the time, was he coaching Heather and Sarah?
No, so they had just finished. Like Mel, it was
Okay.
Mel's first year with Sarah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Melissa Humana Paredes and Sarah Pavin. Pavin fresh off a what they take fifth in Rio?
Yeah.
Yeah, fresh off a fifth in Rio, and then diving into who's this little defender gal? And obviously she winds up being defender of the year. They wound up being world champions and um, the number one ranked team in the world for a little while there.
Yeah, it was pretty much like the whole 4 year cycle until obviously COVID hit. And then I think right around that 2019 area, right, they were hitting a really good stride going into the Olympics.
Yeah,
And, obviously training stops, everything stops,
yeah.
season plans get turned upside down, and then gotta adapt from there. So I think we dropped a little bit, like coming out of that Mexico right before Tokyo.
Yeah.
So
It's
definitely,
actually it's super interesting to wonder like where things would have gone had the Olympics gone on time because that early 2020 portion, right? We used to make a joke that the what's the difference between the best beach volleyball team in the world and the second is the 21st Street bathrooms because Mel and Sarah practiced on 23rd and April and Alex practiced on 21st. So literally you wouldn't even need a set of binoculars if the number one team in the world wanted to spy on the number two team. And during that time, Alex was her back was pretty jacked up. She was doing a lot of practices on a yoga ball, things like that. And Sarah and Mel were, like you said, kind of hitting their stride, leading into that Tokyo portion. So had things not gotten shut down, I wonder how that Tokyo Olympics would have played out. Obviously, a year to give Alex time to heal up. April, I think, just is always working, always ready to rock and roll when she was playing. So like I think it probably benefited them more than it benefited Sarah and Mel. But getting
yeah.
to be around a pro team like that, what's that schedule like? How does that differ from maybe collegiate or juniors volleyball?
I mean, collegiate and juniors volleyball, I feel like there's kind of more of like a structure around it, right? You got your hours, right? For juniors volleyball, you got school hours, right? So then you have to come like after that, right? And then, in the fall, you only get a couple hours of sunlight in the West Coast. So it's like, now we're scrounging for like those little bitty hours. Where on the pro circuit, I mean, you can go honestly whenever, right? You just got to know your athletes' bodies. So like I would say the biggest thing is like you're able to make your own schedule, right? It becomes your only job, your only focus, right? So I feel like it's a lot easier to like manage schedules, get to that training portions. Working with like Mel and them, we obviously had like a sports psych, we had nutritionist, they had, their photo sessions, planning for the Olympics, doing all that stuff. So it was more about like them kind of managing their schedule outside, and we kind of set the training blocks early in the morning, right? So we didn't do a lot of two-a-days, not a lot of two-a-days. Like once you're in that, 4 year cycle, it's the end of it gets pretty heavy, and you're kind of trying to manage your bodies going into it. So not a lot of two-a-days, just a lot of getting out in the mornings, doing some workouts in the afternoons, and then just making sure you're, staying activated over the weekends.
Yeah. Is there a difference in feeling like do you ever feel like you go over 20 hours? Do you feel like professional teams are going to utilize more than 20 to begin with? I feel like sometimes we use it as like a constraint, but I
Yeah.
almost was never out at the beach for more than 2 hours in a day during my time out there.
That's a very good question because I would probably have to say no, we are not on the beach more than 20 hours. But I mean, you also think of it like when it comes to college, you're looking at, weight room hours, kind of
Sure.
jump into that as well. So if you put in like our weight room time, some days they would go like really long weight rooms just to like, prepare their bodies for that longer period of time and, build up stamina and things like that where, some days might be super quick. So, I mean, I would say overall we were probably right around there,
Okay.
right? Like we didn't go
Yeah,
over 2 hour practices. That wasn't a thing. Like some days we would go an hour, hour and a half, depending on how everybody felt. So you're probably right. We probably didn't go over that 20 hours. I think when the 20 hours comes to me, it was more about managing multiple teams,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
20 athletes, and trying to get those individual athletes better in those 20 hours is kind of where the restraint comes to in my brain.
For sure. No, there's actual restraints on coaches of like it'd be great to just have a pairs practice. Unfortunately, when you think, okay, I'm going to do 8 pairs practices in a day, that gets rather inefficient rather quick.
Yeah, then you're working literally the whole day and you're never in the office, right?
Yeah, no video, no weight room session for you. There's just out on the sand for 8 hours a day. It's a bit of a grind.
Yes, it is, especially in that heat.
Thinking about, like, you mentioned, you got to know your players, your athletes' bodies and what they're able to put out. Like, when you talk about the unstructuredness of a practice schedule for a pro team, how are you guys setting that up? Is that week by week to see where we're at, or are you setting it up? All right, in this month we're going to hit these topics, and here's how we're going to structure this: of 3 days on, 1 day off. Is that any type of conversation for you guys?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely part of the conversation. I think like, in the A2 program, like
Mm-hmm.
we run like our Mondays are usually a little more technical coming into the week, and then we're competing, Tuesday we're kind of off on Wednesday unless we need to like walkthroughs for games. Thursdays is more, competition as well. And then Fridays we either, tread backwards a little bit and we go into more technical cleanup, or we go into like, more competition based on what they have. So as far as like training plan setup, we have like YTP, so that's our yearly training plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of like, okay, they got a tournament coming in here, right? So we're gonna work hard up until here, and then we're gonna ease off as they come into the tournament so that their bodies are ready. We kind of set that up. So we know like when practices are gonna be, when tournaments are gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
Miles and them in the training weight room, they do a great job of monitoring their ups and downs through there. But as far as like on court, we're very open to our athletes. Like, hey, like you communicate with us, like how are you feeling today? Like are you feeling like we can go hard? Because this is one of those days. Well, oh, my shoulder's not feeling it today. Like, okay, well, we'll minimize the overhead attacking, but we're gonna go hard on the passing or the setting. Good footwork stuff. So I think that all depends
Mm-hmm.
on like our athletes and like what time of the year it is, and if it meets our YTPs.
Do you have
Are
a
there
favorite, like, practice structure that you like to use, or like something that's really going to push your athletes, or when you're into those softer days or the easier days as you're getting up, like what are those types of practice looks like? How do they differ from each other, I guess?
Yeah, no. So when it comes to like a Monday practice, like technical practice, it's more about, I guess you would say reps,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like everybody says like reps, 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 but I would say more focused reps. So we're getting out there, we're dialing the holding for the 2 seconds at the end of a platform. We're dialing in, like tracking in that ball, really seeing the ball to the setter's hands before we approach, taking that time to, like, okay, we passed the ball to this location. What are our 2 or 3 sets that we want to run out of this? So it kind of depends. I would say my favorite is more about like, breaking down a skill. So we got a new defender in, right? We got a new like program coming up here in the summer that we're gonna, kind of launch, and that's gonna probably be my favorite because it's all gonna be very like technical, right? Like
Yeah.
we're gonna break down how to pursue a ball in defense, how to dig a ball, hard driven, how to create space with your body. Talking, you got the college number system, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We kind of go away from that a little bit. So it's like kind of adapting them into like, hey, be adjustable on your offense, right? Like we're gonna really see the set, coming out of the setter's hands, and we're gonna have more discipline there. So kind of more in that nature of like, hey, we're gonna break it down. We're gonna go like a step ladder, right? We're gonna climb it from the bottom all the way to the top, but we'll get there by the end of the practice. And then like trying to repeat something like that 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
right? 3 days in a row creates like a behavior modification, right?
Okay.
So we can change behavior if we do it 3 days in a row consistently rather than just like one or two and then we're moving on, right? So 3 days really puts that into place.
That's like really interesting to hear about, like especially with the behavior modification and the 3 days in a row and the patterns organization with it, and like thinking about that, is that practice plan going to be the exact same for all 3 days, or is it something where you're throwing in one or two different ideals after those skill based reps to kind of show a different pattern of how that can be used in the match?
I think more of like the pattern stuff would
Mm-hmm.
be more about like on a competition day.
Okay.
Like, we want to put them in like, okay, say today we're just going to come in and we're going to hit the line shot every time. Well, we're going to see what the other like defenses are going to do against that so that we can start to determine like what patterns are going to be created off of certain, shots, certain placements. Maybe we're hitting at the pin. What are defenses going to defend us like? So kind of like when it comes to like patterns like that, yeah, it's going to be more competition based. When it comes to like the technical aspect of like, okay, we've done the same thing. Like we started Monday, say we're learning how to pursue a cut shot, right? Okay, we're gonna put you on the ground. We're gonna learn how to hit the ground, one hand dig all the way back. We might do that same exact, step ladder that we
Mm-hmm.
did, right? But it's gonna be a little bit quicker and we're gonna get to the live a little faster, each and every day. There might be some like changes day 2 to day 3 where it's like towards the end of it, we're running more like randomness
Okay.
to it. Like we run one drill, like the girls come in, they stand in the angle, coach is on a box, like hit the ball at them, hit the cut shot, and it's always reset, reset, reset. But then as soon as you hit the line shot, now they're running through and they're playing it out. So it's like an uncontrollable number, right? Maybe hit 5 hits, three cut shots, and then one line shot. Now they're transitioning it out, next person's in. So it's kind of like transitioning into live more in those 3 days. So it's like really technical day one, like
Yeah.
half technical starting live, and then like one third of it's like super technical, like what we've been working on, and then how can we put that into like more of a live situation, for the rest of that hour.
Yeah,
Nice.
I find you guys change the environment pretty regularly. Like it's really interesting. Scott's background being biomechanics, right, and just kind of having that natural progression for himself. Right, I think creates a unique pattern. A lot of times, it's definitely the hot thing right now to not do that as much. Right, that'd be considered like quote unquote block training.
Mhm.
Can you explain a little bit about how you guys find it to continue to be effective, especially at the national team level? Of like, it's not necessarily the same pattern over and over again, but it is kind of getting your body into a position to make a play regularly, right? And kind of talk us through that explanation.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I definitely think like, everybody's like, oh, things got to change. But I think like building consistency is huge as well, right? Like when you have the same motion, right? Like it goes back to the conversation. Should we be training perfect or should we be training like randomness? And I think like that goes back into like, are you training athleticism or are you training skill? And for me, it's like we can train that skill, right? And there's not a lot of ways to do a certain skill correct, right? So being able to do that thing consistently, like, so we do a lot of like coach on a box, like let's shift over and serve receive and create a good angle. And that doesn't change very often. We usually start a lot of practices, just very much like, hey, we're going to shift over here. We're going to hold our angle, hold for 2 seconds, and it's just a lot of repeat, right? I think it's good for us as coaches too, because it gives us the ability to be like, hey, with a lot of players, because we're adding more and more players to this group as we go, and the more players we get, it's like, hey, this is the drill we're running, go, and it's like quicker setups, quicker motions out of it. And I think like being at this high level, right? Like you don't need much variability. They need to go out there, they need to do the same thing, they need to feel the same thing every single time. And then they need to hold and make sure that they're being disciplined through the finishes. And they're coming in the right way. I think at this level, it's more about creating a really good starting point and a really good finish. They know how to get there, they're going to get there, right?
Yeah.
It's just how do we get there? How do we prepare for it? And how are we going to finish it, right? So I think the consistency, I don't think it's a huge problem at like our level.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe as you get into the younger age groups, I could see it like a player getting bored, right? Oh, coach, we've done the same serve receive drill for like, 4 months now. It's like, well, I mean, that's what you got to do in a game. Like, so I can understand it, like,
Yeah.
the lower levels, like that's what they're like getting bored with it. They want to move on. The higher
Yeah.
levels, it's more understood like, hey, this is my job. I need to get there. I need to hold my platform. I need to get out there and I need to do that, 50 times today so that it's, that I'm dialed in for this tournament. Whereas like juniors, it's like, hey, let's go compete.
Yeah.
And we kind
Yeah.
of see that honestly in the guys a little bit too.
Yeah, they haven't
Right?
been
Like,
coached very much, right? They're
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah, they don't want to be coached sometimes too, right? Like a lot of guys like, hey, I've been out here, I've been doing it for so long, like I know what I got, right? And that's good enough to get me here. It's good enough to keep me here. Right? Well, like there's room for improvement, right? Our girls have been doing it for the last, 10 years and we've been getting better and better and our pools are getting bigger and bigger, right? Where our guys' pools are getting smaller and smaller and right. So obviously something's not working in that culture and we gotta start making changes there. As far as like wanting to be trained, right? Like you're paying for coaching to get better so that you make more money,
Yeah.
right? We're not paying for coaching and that's just wasting money, you know what I'm saying? So kind of
Sure.
changing the mindset there and seeing if we can, change that kind of like you're saying like it's not boring to go out there and get those reps if they're good mindful reps, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you need.
Well, and mindful, I think, is a great word for it because you're looking at athletes and doing the same thing over and over again allows you to recognize when it feels one way versus another, right? And that self-awareness is kind of probably the more important part of anything. Like when you dig a cut shot and it doesn't feel quite right, you know it doesn't feel quite right, which gives you more information.
Yeah,
There's probably something in there of like, hey, I gotta know what it feels like to set a good out of system ball,
yeah,
right? I have to be able to identify it, recognize it, and then repeat it, right? And that's my body will sort of naturally do that, but by maybe playing into the awareness piece of what I'm doing or what I'm feeling. Oh, it feels like I'm using my right hip. You might not be using your right hip at all, right? You could be standing on your left leg.
yeah,
But if that's what it feels like, and you can go repeat that motion, then you're gonna experience some success. So
correct.
it's really big there. I think you have an interesting perspective too, because you've been coaching high school and club volleyball for quite a few years.
Yeah,
You've been coaching professionally as a national team coach, both for Canada and now the United States. Also, I think you ran. Did you help Meg and Therese for a little while?
I did. I kind of got them started after Sarah and T and
Yeah.
Emily and Meg split up.
Yeah. So you've led a professional team. You've been an assistant on a professional team. You're helping kind of start the next generation of USA Beach, and you've worked at the collegiate level. Now, obviously, Michael and I, we do this podcast a little bit for other people, but mostly for ourselves. And so, kind of, how would you and how did you take some of your higher level activities and plug it into that collegiate system where we just talked about? You're not working with one team, you're working with eight.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that you mentioned earlier was we're going to be out there for 8 practices at a time.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that role on, right? Like we have an hour left with each player. It's like, hey, like I'm free at this time. I'll see you up there. So we were able to get some like good like individual time on the beach with the players in the collegiate game. And I think I mean, there was obviously some times like when you're speaking at like a different, not to say that anybody's level is lower or their mental level was lower or anything like that. I just spoke at like a different speed,
Mhm.
kind of like an expectation of like them to understand what I'm already talking about. Kind of like when you're at that pro level, they like you say something and they're like, "Oh, I remember that. We're moving on." So like that was a big learning lesson for me is to slow that down, kind of to understand that. Which I think helped me and it helped them too. Because me speaking kind of at a higher level, like as an expectation at that higher level too, it kind of, pushed them to be at that, next step, right? Whereas like if I came down to them and I like brought it super, super, super slow, because like it's a big swing sometimes, and it's like hard to navigate that swing, right? Like I could go from one extreme to the other. And I think, I kind of did that for a little bit. I went from one extreme of like, hey, now I'm kind of like, you know, not necessarily baby them, but like, talking a little bit slower, breaking it down a little bit more, doing it more like my juniors coaching rather than my professional coaching. And then I had to find a line between there. So honestly, I think it helped me more going to the college level to break a high level game down at a higher level, if that
Sure.
makes sense. Right. Like at the, juniors level, you say like the funniest things, right? Um, like thumbs to target, right? And
Yeah.
their thumbs are always going to face where they want them to go, right? You take that to like the pros, they laugh at you a little bit, but they understand like, hey, like, oh, that actually kind of worked, sometimes. So taking some of those things that like those corny, jokes that, work with the juniors actually, worked with the pros too. So
Yeah.
I think it kind of like it really helped, but taking, I would say, the expectation of having, high level play and high level thought behind your play,
Mhm.
decision making. I would say those were probably the best things that I brought from the professional world to the collegiate game.
Yeah. Was there a secret you had to incorporating that high level thinking and decision making into your collegiate athletes who have just admittedly, like you said, never played the game at that level before?
Mhm.
So it's like we do have to just break it down a little bit slower because it's new. And if
Yeah.
you try to teach me German, you can't just speak a full German sentence at normal speed, right? You're gonna need to Guten Tag. Yeah, like you're gonna have to really. So
Yeah.
how do you
So,
kind of get the decision making piece in there?
a lot of questions.
Hmm.
A lot of questions. I think asking, why did you decide to do that? And not just on the court, right? Like, you ask them on the court and then you remember those moments that you were on the court. And then it's like, okay, well, now we're in the video room. Okay, now why did you do that? Like you see this all set up, so it's like, what are you missing now? Like, did you not see? Okay,
Hmm.
now we're breaking it down, going from, the end of a play, breaking it back to the beginning of the play. When did the problem actually occur? Kind of taking that and like asking why. I was like, you could probably ask my Pepperdine girls, like, it was like, hey, like, why did you do that? And
Yeah.
they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, if you don't know, then why'd you do it? And then
Sure.
it's like, okay, well, if you don't know that shot's open, then you come into swing, right? Because we should be coming in to hit first. And if you're not hitting, you saw something, something made you change. And it's like, okay, my partner told me to go line. Okay, that's a good why. Like I listened. Okay, right? But it's really understanding, situational awareness. Like, okay, this pass took me here. What's your decisions out of that pass? Like, I'm not going to run a 10 on a pass to a five. It's
Mhm.
just, it's not going to work. So it's like, okay, well, what can I run on that play? Can I run tempo into a 20? No, right? We're probably going to run that like a tempo like 30, 40,
Yeah.
maybe something closer, right? And then we're going to be able to run like a two spread or like a three spread. So I think the biggest thing was, engaging with them and just asking why. And then like even on the plays where you're like, I don't even know why you would do that, right? But ask them, like make them think about it, right? Because the more they think, well, why, all of a sudden now they're going to come into it thinking, okay, well, there's the defense that's going to be open, right?
Sure.
And then say the last thing is probably looking at the defense,
Hmm.
right? Like okay, understanding what is a line situation lineup. Okay, there's the blockers lined up here, the defenders more into this angle. I come in on my first step, I see that there's not a whole lot of like big moves being made in the collegiate game. It's a lot of sit, seam, run down shots.
Yeah.
So it was more like, okay, well, if she's sitting here, we know what they're gonna do, right? So what are our best options out of this situation, right? Um, and then making them answer like, why is that our best option? You know?
Gotcha. So bringing out somebody's like 4-year-old child is
Mhm.
the best coaching strategy any of us could make. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Scotty's
yeah,
got a 4-year-old, so I'm gonna bring Noah out. I'm gonna say,
yeah,
Noah, your only job today is ask the girls why. why
Yeah.
they did
Why?
that. It'd
Why
be
would you
really
do that?
effective. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try
I
it
would
one of these
be
days.
careful because you could over ask and then they start getting frustrated. So you gotta like once again, you gotta know your players, know
Yeah.
the right situations to ask the why. Don't just every pass be like, why?
See, Chris, you shy away from the anger and frustration. I lean into it. I dive into it.
I'm like, no reason to get mad here. We're all good. It's volleyball.
No, no, no.
We do it
Getting
for
them
fun.
angry. Get them as angry as they can.
Yeah. Well, they hit harder,
They do. See, mission accomplished. I'm getting something out of it.
right?
Um, Chris, what is something that like coaches could do to get that higher level thinking of the game themselves? Like, let's say, let's just pretend that maybe there were like two college coaches on this call who maybe hadn't played professional beach volleyball at
Mhm.
like the Olympic level. Well, how could they go about, starting to see the game at that level, at the highest level, so that they can continue to encourage their athletes to do so, other than moving to California?
Yeah, yeah. Come on out,
Okay.
California. We need some coaches in this world. Stepping in might not be the best paying job, but we can get you some funding. Um, yeah, no. I would say the best thing I could say right now is to look at the defense and be like, all right, what do you all want to be in, and how can I get you out of that? Um, like, because obviously, like you're playing, you're competing, right? Defenses are doing specific things against you, right? Like, okay, well, you want to do this against me, right? Like, how can I get you not to do that, right? So if you're running line on me every single time, like, I want to go heavy, a little bit more heavy into the angle cut shot, get you to stop doing that. So now I have my line open, so kind of looking at the other side a little more
Hmm.
a little bit more, right? Like understanding like what are they doing against us and what is making them do that against us.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of taking that next step, I guess, would be my biggest advice there.
And video, right? Like that was one of my favorite young me activities was I would watch a beach volleyball match, but I would pretend to be the coach of one of the two teams,
Hmm.
right? And then I would try to like identify the other side. Okay, what would I say to them on obviously I'm aiming more collegiately, internationally, there's no coaching in the box at all.
Well,
Or there will be. There
we're in
will
a
be
test period. We're in a test period.
coming up. No doubles.
No
Ooh.
doubles. No doubles and coaches in the box. We'll see how this goes.
This is interesting. Yeah, who would try something like that? College, cough, cough. Um, but I would like pretend to coach it. What would I say to them on this side switch? Because I think the other thing that we talk about a lot with coaching, and you've had the reps of coaching dead ball and the reps of having to sit in the stands and be like, God, I would have. That's not what I would have done, T and Meg.
Yeah.
But is like, what is the important information to convey in this moment? And I think that's such a good practice activity too, right? Like, what is the important information to convey in it? Like,
Um,
you can't whack-a-mole, right? You can't chase
yeah.
things.
I mean, I would say like what you see. Like a lot of people, like especially me, like when I first started coaching, I got a lot of anxiety of like, oh, is it going to be wrong? Is it going to be right? Is what I'm telling them actually helping them or not? No, I think it's like, you're in the box, you're in there for a reason. They trust you, you trust them. You just got to go out and you got to say what you see. Um, I do a lot of like tracking in a notebook. Like I was lucky enough to work with Marcio Sicoli, right? He has like a whole like tracking flow chart thing that he does for like in matches and it's amazing. I would definitely suggest like if you ever get the opportunity to ask him to explain it to you a little bit. Um, but yeah, like so that helps me a lot. Like I'm tracking their hitting charts, out of the one zone, two zone, three zone, right? Where are they serving us? Like what are they getting out of serving us to the line? What are they getting out of serving us to the seam? And are they picking that up?
Sure.
Right? Maybe they're going out there, we're playing really good ball. You don't need to say anything. You just need to like remind them of the small things. Like, hey, what is a controllable that we can keep controlling while we're out there? Let's have good vision, right? Let's have good feet on serve receive. Doesn't have to be telling somebody that you're doing anything wrong. It's like, hey, let's just have good feet here. Like, or hey, fast arm on your swing, right? Go for your serve. Like, I think it's all about trusting yourself and like, what do you see? I don't think there's a right thing to say in that moment, a wrong thing to say in that moment. Every situation's different, but it's like, what do you see? And then be confident with it, right? When you speak in confidence, people trust you and believe in you as much as you believe in yourself. So if you don't speak in the confidence, then they're going to be a little hesitant to go out there and accomplish that task, right? But if you go out there and you're like, hey, I'm not seeing anything, keep going, do your thing, like same game plan. We'll adjust if they adjust. Maybe something you've seen in video, like you mentioned, right? Like maybe we picked up on something that they do after side switches, and it's like, hey, here's a quick reminder of that part of the game plan. Don't focus on it, but hey, here's a reminder.
Yeah.
So like I said, I don't think there's any right or wrong when you're on a side switch or you're sitting in the box. It's all about like, what do you see, and then are you confident in what you see, right?
It's all educated guesswork.
It really is. I mean, unless you're sitting there tracking it, right, and you got like it on hard piece of paper and you can show them like, hey, she's attacking here, right? This is what we want to try to stop right now. This is where we're getting beat.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's all educated until you get to the, tendency portion of late matches, tight games. Everybody gets tight and they want to go comfortable.
For sure.
Don't take a risk.
For sure.
We always finish up with one question of like, what do you want to see out of NCAA beach volleyball next? And I guess for you, I'd like to open up even wider. What do you want to see out of beach volleyball next across all
Mhm.
divisions, across all playing levels?
I would have to say, in collegiate game right now, I would personally, I mean, everybody's always like the handsets, the handsets, the handsets, right? Like, yeah, jump set, totally fine, like do all that stuff, but we're getting so far away from in the international game of that dip,
Hmm.
right? And any like hold motion, right? It's all got to be quick now. So it's like more of like an indoor style game. And I don't know, when I watch a lot of collegiate games, you just see a lot of dip with it right now. And you got to be lenient the younger they are, all that stuff. But I think it like especially at like, the higher levels like the USCs and the UCLAs, right? The top five dogs, right? There shouldn't be any of that. It should all be quick. It should all be, up tempo. Like we should be trying to push those athletes to be at that level, right? So when they come out of college, right, they're ready to like actually go in there. They're not getting called for the first two tournaments they go to until they make that adjustment. Um, so I would say a little bit more consistency in the international AVP and collegiate, as far as that goes. I'm not saying refs are doing a bad job or anything. They're doing what they can, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I just think there could be a little bit more consistency there. And this is going to be like a hot topic here, but
Yeah, that's what we
the
like.
number systems. I'm not the biggest fan of like the number system. There's just too big of a window. Players don't know which part of that window the ball's coming into. It gets a little choppy, it gets a little dicey unless, you've been playing together for, 2 or 3 years and you kind of got it dialed in. Or you took the whole off season to prepare for that season, right? Like a lot of people don't, take their off season, they find well, at least where I was, my experience was, we're looking to find the best partners. Not
Yeah.
everybody's playing together for the whole off season, preparing for that season. So, I would say it's a great general, but if there's any way that we could start adapting to, maybe three calls in the match, and it's like some are distance, some are locked, kind of like indoor has it where it's like a go ball or like a one ball is always floating with the setter where, a three is in the three gap,
Yeah.
kind of like that, right? Where this is always floating, like a two ball always floats with us. It's 2 or 3 feet, right? A three is always straight up and down. You know
So
what
that's
I mean?
that is kind of what it is, but this is something I was toying with my assistant the other day. I think we should have more zones. I think seven is fine. Like, but just narrow. Yeah, seven, right? You still want a middle. You still want like a true middle set. But
Yeah.
right now, if you go five zones, it's what, like 27 feet across? That's a 5 foot window. Let's say
Mhm.
they put it perfectly in zone one. It's a 5 foot hitting window. As soon as
What's
you go
what's
seven,
perfectly in zone one?
like if you, sorry, not perfect. If you get it into zone one,
Yeah.
that's a 5 foot space
Yeah.
to get it in. If you go seven zones, right, that trims down to a 4 foot space. I'd say most high level teams can work within 3 feet's kind of ideal, right? Like if a ball's 3 feet in or 3 feet out, like that's kind of the margin of error that you'd want. And so it's actually like 3.6 feet or something like that per zone if you go seven zones.
Yeah.
So this is my hot take. This is my hot take. You want to narrow it down a little bit. Because I would argue you saying like the three ball and indoor. We have that. That's what a two, like, you know what I mean? A two is always in the two spot.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you're saying of like, it's really big and you don't get
Yeah.
the precision that I think we're capable of.
I was like, is it on the inside of the two zone now, or
Yeah.
is it on the outside of that? Like you said, 5 foot range, 3 foot, 4 foot range, right? So I think, yeah, you could. I think it would take some training to get 7 points in there, like you said. I think it
Sure.
would take some training, a lot of setter work, to get them to be precise. I think with, narrowing it down a little bit, it's like it's less thinking. It simplifies the game a little bit. I'm all about making it more simple, right? The simpler we can be, the more efficient, the more consistent we can be. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I would go with that is just it makes it until you've worked on that system. So like at your college, right? Like Coastal, right? If you were all off season, you're working on your settings like 1, 2, 3, and then like dialing that in. So like when a player calls it, if they're standing on the 5 and the player calls the 4, wherever that like 1, 2, 3, 4 now is like right before the 3, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Right. So now they're calling that 4, they're putting that ball into that location. So I think it could work. You got to have some really good high level setters and
Good thing we do.
understanding the pass and what it's giving you. I think
Sure.
that could really work. But
I think you struggle with that with the five zones too. Yeah, you're saying high level setters. I noticed earlier you were saying like the top dogs like UCLA, USC. You missed Austin P and Coastal, but I think that just got cut out of the video. I heard it though. So
yeah, yeah, it was absolutely cut out.
there we go. Perfect. Yeah.
I was
No,
like,
man.
y'all got some good players. I coached a couple of them.
I know. You were talking. I
But,
was like, wow, we gotta ask. I gotta ask Maya what she remembers most about Chris,
oh,
Coach Chris. So I'll
yeah,
have to make that happen. But
probably be
Chris,
one of those funny jokes.
we really appreciate you coming on, man, and excited to see what you do with USA Beach and go win us some medal in LA, man. That's what we're
Let's
all working
go.
towards, right?
Gold all the way, baby.
Thanks for
Boom.
coming on, Chris.